All right, the Paynes fans. I know it has been quite some time since you all heard me say that. It is August 2nd when I'm recording this, and I am attempting to catch up on the Paynes. I actually just sat down and watched episode 19, A Painful Bounce. I believe that aired July 20th, so if I'm not mistaken, I need to watch last week's episode, episode 20, then I'll be all caught up. And then, of course, episode 21 comes out Friday, which is tomorrow night. But I sat down, watched the episode. If you haven't been on the channel long, or if you've been on here long enough where you've seen many of my Paynes videos, some of my live streams, I talk about the Paynes here and there, you know that I'm not the biggest fan of the show, but I do watch it. Not religiously, but I do watch it every now and then just to kind of show my support, but also because it is good to try to watch somewhat of a comedic show because of all the drama on the haves and the have-nots, as well as the other programs on OWN. But gosh, let me just say this much. This episode, I was hoping that when the Paynes returned to, TV, it would be a bit different in terms of, okay, a lot of the things I criticized the show for several months ago, maybe they fixed it up. Not really. I mean, I feel like some of the acting is still over the top. That laugh track, if you see me in live streams and whatnot, then you know I don't really drink alcohol and whatnot. It's by choice, it's just by choice. I mean, if I did, I would probably joke around and say, take a shot for every time they use the laugh track in an episode, but that'll be a dangerous game to play because you'll probably be dead by the 12-minute mark. It's like the laugh track goes off after anyone either says a freaking sentence or if somebody just makes a weird facial expression or body gesture. And it's so overpowering because man, okay, let me just put it this way. Let me talk about the good things. Let me just talk about the good. I don't want to just rant on the episode, but let me just put it this way. I did laugh about 3 good times, but really that was only from Curtis moments, believe it or not. And you probably wonder what Jeremy, Curtis is funny, but if one of the biggest things about this show is that I don't really feel like there's a true chemistry between the cast members, and Curtis and Ella's character, it's like they are, put it this way, Ella's like a super over the if you think Hannah is a Christian, they just dialed, Ella and Hannah were like on the same level somewhat, but then they just turned Ella up to like a 17 on the Christian scale, and then they made Curtis overly ridiculous and just selfish and stuff like that. We got those traits on House of Pain, but their characters felt more balanced because of the cast around them. On the Paynes, it's just like they took the Ella and Curtis that we knew, but then just really messed up their personalities. I don't really know if that's just me, but I was on YouTube looking at some Paynes video clips and whatnot, and then people in the comment section were literally saying what I was saying about the laugh track, about these personalities just being out of whack, the fact that the character chemistry really isn't there like it was on House of Pain. Not to mention that this episode, as soon as the episode opened up with Curtis and Ella in the house, Curtis and Ella in their house, I'm just like, I'm pretty sure I know where this episode is going to take place, because typically that's how it works. Each episode takes place within maybe 1, if not 2 locations. Sometimes it might be inside the house, outside the house. Sometimes we go to the church where Joanne and Nyla are working. And sometimes on a rare occasion, we'll go to the laundromat. But really, this episode took place in the living room and the kitchen. That's it. Oh yeah, let me just talk about what made me laugh. Curtis, when he was trying to put on that suit at the last minute before the agent and the bank manager came in the door. I will admit that was pretty funny. And what was it when it's like, oh, I'm Ella Payne and I'm Curtis Payne. Oh, we know who you are, huh? And I know you also just tried to put that suit on. I don't know why, I just laughed at that. Then at the very end where it's like, oh, the money has been confiscated. Oh, hell. And then it's like, that's not the worst of it. What, she going to jail? No, we have the right to take the laundromat. Hell no. Now that was House of Pain Curtis right there, and I loved it. I loved it. But I remember his catchphrase, "What the hell?" And then aside from taking shots for every time there's a laugh track, how about whenever Ella yells Curtis, which I swear she did like 10 times in this one episode. The bit about Terrence coming over in a rage about the money. Yeah, I mean, I don't really have a problem with that. I just feel like it was a bit. Look, I can understand, like, you know, being a contract. That's like me. You know, I'm a YouTuber. Let's say, for example, I had 5 people working under me. You had one person who was responsible for social media, one person who was responsible for editing, one person that was helping me with scripts, and, you know, things like that. And let's say, you know, for whatever reason, my YouTube monetization got shut off or something along those lines. I would be in a huge amount of trouble because those 5 people, if they don't get paid, they will most likely quit and I'll be in a bind. So I can understand somebody like him working with a lot of money renovating places. So if he doesn't get paid, none of his employees get paid, so they walk out. But let me just be honest here. My mom and dad are literally like Curtis and Ella to an extent, in terms of my dad's a hothead and one of my mom's like, you know, over the top when she. Yeah, she's kind of over the top. But basically, put it this way. Her being on the telephone and then they keep interrupting her. I didn't laugh. But I mean, when I first saw the scene, I'm just like, oh my God, here we go. I know they're going to run this phone gag for like 10 minutes. I did chuckle because that is literally how my parents act. It's like my dad, I don't know what it is, and it's so annoying. If he needs to call somewhere, he's like, hey, can you call? Like, if you need to call somewhere, why don't you just call yourself? I don't know why. It's just so ridiculous. But I will admit, I did chuckle because of the fact that I have lived through that. It is the same thing my parents do. So I can relate to that. Do I feel it went on a bit too long in a joke? Yeah. And my God, it's like, maybe it's because I haven't seen the Paynes in so long. But when Nyla came through that door, my face lit up, man. And, you know, Terrence interrupting, acting all gangster. You know, I found it funny because I thought, like, wow, I bet Curtis doesn't try to swing at Terrence the way he knocked out Kendrick outside the house. But, you know, aside from the Curtis moments that made me laugh, I did actually like the Nyla scenes when she talked with Terrence in the kitchen. And then she talked with Kendrick's over the phone. And to be honest, I like those scenes, not just because Nyla is attractive. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not just like playing bias here. I'm being very, very, you know, as a thorough examiner of the episode. I did enjoy the scene because it's like, okay, we got a storyline going on about what she doing. The fact that she was trying to be hooked up with Terrence by the Paynes, but she's with Kendrick's. Now she's struggling to determine what she needs to do for herself, but also her kids. I'm assuming the kids were at school because, you know, not every episode, all the characters are in the, you know, same episode. But yeah, I do like where they're going with the storyline. It doesn't seem forced. I mean, like I said before with the whole chemistry, I feel like the problem is Curtis and Ella are obviously from a different show. And even though it's called The Paynes, I feel like they shouldn't even be there. I know that sounds weird, but I think it really has to do with the fact that their character personalities are really not what they were in House of Pain. Because even though Curtis was selfish, I think he had a good foil and balance in different characters. Like, you know, his son Calvin, CJ, and the kids. Like, the fact that he can interact with so many people. It's almost like, you know, if Curtis was the same level of over the top he was on the Paynes as in House of Pain, I feel like, you know, that energy will be siphoned off by the other cast members. So Curtis wasn't over the top selfish because you had Calvin in one episode being selfish, Miranda being selfish, Janine being selfish when she was on drugs and stuff like that. But in the Paynes, I feel like just because the cast have like declined in numbers, they feel like, ooh, well, on House of Pain we had 5 characters who were Christians, so let's just put them all into Ella. But then we got to put a little bit of selfishness in there as well. And and you guys know from my past reviews, I thought the series was actually getting better back during the first 18 episodes when we started focusing on Nyla, learning about stuff, how Kendrick put the rat or mouse in Lynn's room and how she was growing closer to her kids and stuff like that. that was good stuff. And when they started fixing the laundromat, kind of like it's about time. But then when the money came into the equation, that's when I really feel the series started to decline, due to the fact that they really should not have done to Ella what they did, which was make her this, what was called like mean green. Well, I know it's like what, dragon, what is it? What's that saying? Green eyes when you're jealous. But basically that money changed her. I mean, that money, that was a horrible thing to write. I mean, it would have been cool at first, you know, if they found the money and she started blabbing off about a bunch of things she wanted to do with it, but then, you know, settle her down. But then having her take the money, and you know how I felt about that 2 or 3 episodes mini saga where the money was found. Her and Ryan went at it for a bit. Then Ryan snitched to Joanne. Joanne came to the house. She had an argument with Curtis and Ella. Then the next episode, she was threatening to sue. And then Ella took it upon herself to decide that they wanted to give Joanne half of the money. Yeah, it was ridiculous. So now we're at a point where, okay, now the feds discover that the money was dropped in the bank account and it's Ella's account. So Curtis has nothing to do with it. So even though Kendricks is mad, it's kind of like, well, you know, Curtis himself isn't even responsible because, believe it or not, if I want to say it right now, maybe they were better off getting that boat. I mean, Curtis said he was going to buy a boat, but Kendrick found the money. Ella took the money. Ella put the money in her bank account, then didn't even tell Curtis about it. Curtis didn't know until Joanne showed up and then talked about how she wanted half the money. But then, you know, they were like, nope, we're not going to do it. So then Ella took it upon herself to share the money with Joanne. Curtis was pretty much on the outside looking in, like he had nothing to do with this. Ella did make a good point in that the laundromat did need to be fixed up because even though they have this money, if the laundromat isn't fixed up, they have no way of making a constant flow of income. So that was a smart investment. But the problem is, and here's my thing, if they didn't share the money with Joanne, that means about half the money would have been left. And of course, they would have had enough to fix up the laundromat. And then keep in mind, on top of that, that Ella made the decision to invite Nyla and her kids to stay with them at a time when it wasn't even sure if they had enough money to survive with just the 2 of them, because this was before the bag of money was found and before they even got Kendrick as a contractor to, Terrence as a contractor to fix up the laundromat. So I believe at that point they were attempting to take out a loan or something like that. So even though Curtis made the boneheaded, selfish decision to move everything from Atlanta to Florida to retire, Ella, in a way, has been more selfish than Curtis when you really think about it. Like, even though her heart's in the right place, a lot of decisions, big decisions, have been made without Curtis's consent. Even though we know it would have been him being selfish and yada, yada, yada. It's just like he himself hasn't been involved in a lot of big decisions lately. That's just my opinion on that. But also the fact that, man, in the next episode, I believe they're talking with Joanne. Like, honestly, I haven't been looking at episode synopsis or anything. I've just been keeping track of the episode titles. That way I would know how many episodes I need to watch in order to catch up with the series. And in any case, the episode itself, I wouldn't say it was horrible. It's just that, you know, I didn't go into this episode with high expectations. There were some things I did like about it, like the Nyla scenes with her and Terrence talking, then her on the phone with Kendricks. And, you know, maybe it seems a bit repetitive. Like, I don't want to judge the Nyla character and her situation, because we're seeing a lot of that on the other shows. Like, for example, we've had the Justin and Jeffrey on the Haves and Have Not rammed down our throats so much. Like, her being on the phone with her abuser and then being like, hey, say you love me. And I'm just like, well, we heard this before. The only difference is, you know, it's a man and a woman as opposed to 2 men on the Haves and Have Nots. But I did laugh. I legitimately laughed a few times. I did like the Nyla stuff. I would give this episode probably a 7 out of 10, and that's just me being nice about it. But I am going to watch episode 20 after recording this video. Then, of course, I'll go back to a review on that. But in any case, you know, let me know what you thought about the Paynes. I know when I'm on Instagram doing live streams, I like to ask people, did they watch it? What did they think of it? the laugh track is one of the biggest things. And I did see a YouTube comment on the Paynes, and they were like, you know what? At first, I thought that laugh track was annoying, but now I realize Tyler Perry needs the laugh track because this mess isn't funny. To each their own. I mean, I feel like this show is definitely missing a lot of the chemistry that House of Pain had, but I'm going to keep watching. But like I said before, I can't guarantee an episode review like every single weekend. Like, you know, the show comes on Friday, then I do a review the next day. But maybe I might be going home tomorrow, which is Friday, because, you know, my nephew's getting ready for second grade. So I might go home for a couple days for tax-free weekend, school shop, all that fun stuff. I believe open house is going down today in my hometown. So yeah, but in any case, guys, let me know what your thoughts on the Paynes are. What did you think of this episode? Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and keep an eye out, because aside from the Paynes, I actually have started watching Greenleaf. I think I'm on episode 4 on Netflix, and if I do catch up soon, hopefully before the show returns later this month, I'll be able to start doing reviews on that.